Hey up, today's video is on my kiln here. It's a manual kiln, sitter kiln, and I do a small repair to it, and then I go through the inside, how it electrically works, how to test it if you buy one yourself before you use it, and how the kiln setter mechanism works, and then how I use it to investment cast. Anyway, on with the video. Thanks for watching. Hey up. Well, last time I used this, when I turned it on, it made a crackling sound and the element wouldn't come on. So I'm going to take this apart and fix it. Okay, so there's the top coil, there's the bottom coil, and it just comes out to a terminal screw with wire going down to each switch. So I've got a switch down the bottom and I've got a switch up here. So on the front there's a screw there and a screw there, and that'll pop that switch out. Okay, so it doesn't have really a make or a mate, but it's got a number here, so I'm going to throw that into Google. So I replaced the switch. When I put a meter across these two terminals and flick that on, it goes down to 12.8 amps, which is correct. Then I went and checked this one, and this one's flaking out now. If I smack it with the wrench, it changes resistance. So I'm going to take this apart. I went to Lock Supply House. For those that live in Oklahoma, Lock Supply House, really cool place to go. 17 bucks. Online it was $18.50, so cheaper just going in your own backyard. So anyway, I'm going to replace that one out. Okay, so I got the 4 screws. You have to pull it out slowly because of this thing here. Just checking for loose. No, that's all tight. So I'm going to replace that one. So I've got one of these fancy mics, a mini MDJ. Cheers. Okay, I took the switch off. This side, the brass is looking good. This side, it's got hot. And that goes inside with when I put the meter on it. So I'm going to put this one on. Make sure I've got it the right way with the off. Anyway, moving on. So one thing, these switches, these old switches had this. I'm just going to cut these off with the hacksaw. Oh, it's tricky getting this back in the hole. Okay, so power comes in here and here. This is a switch for the kiln setter, which turns off your kiln when it reaches max temperature. And then the power from here goes up to this side of the switch, the other one comes to this side and then loops down to the other switch. And then the output comes through here, through this coil and back. So that's the inside of the kiln. Okay, so I've drawn out the diagram. This is the phase and neutral, hits the kiln setter switch, comes down to the 2-gang switch for the top element, loops around both sides to the bottom switch, and this is the coil for the heater. So simple circuit. Okay, so testing it after I work, I'm going to put one lead on the ground, and then I'm going to touch the body of the kiln, and I want to see 0 and near 0, which I've got. Then I want to go between the two plug-ins, and I've got nothing. So I want to turn on one and nothing, turn on the other, nothing. So now what I want to do now is check the resistance. So with both elements on, I've got 6.6 ohms. Turn one off, I've got 13 ohms. Turn them both off. So this thing electrically turns out good. So now this is the kiln sitter kiln. So that's what happens when it gets to temperature. There's a little fork on there, you put a little wedge, and as it gets hot it bends, and then this drops down and opens that up. So to turn this, to set this, you're supposed to do that and put your wedge in. So what I do is I put a little piece of tin foil in here, and then you have to push this button and that stays in. Now the switch is on, then you can turn these two on. So that's how you use the kiln sitter kiln. Okay, so this is my burnout process. So I go from 0 up to about 300 in 30 minutes, and by an hour I'm at 400. 2 hours I'm at 500, 700 on the third hour, and I start ramping up the temperature. So somewhere around the 6th hour I'm at 1400 degrees. I keep it for 2 hours, and then I spend an hour bringing it down to 1000 and keep it at 1000 for an hour, and that's when I pour. So that's my burnout schedule. Okay, so this is my kiln sitter kiln, and I use this for burning out the investment. So how do I do it? The first thing I do is I turn on this bottom switch, and I leave this up to the top and the vent hole open, and that'll get me around 300 degrees, and I leave it like that for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then I drop it down to about here, and this will bring the kiln up to 400, 450, and after about an hour I turn this vent hole off, and then it'll bring it up to about 500. Then I close this off and I leave it like that for an hour, a couple of hours, and it'll bring it up to 700 degrees within about 2 hours, and I let it sit there because I want to burn out the wax. Wax will burn at about 700 degrees, and then slowly it'll come up. But if I want to increase the temperature up to around 1000, I turn the top one on for about 20 minutes and then just turn it off, and then it'll bring the temperature up 1000, and I let it sit there for maybe an hour. And then I turn it on again for another 20 minutes, and that'll bring it up to around 1200. Turn it off after 20 minutes, let it sit there for a while, and then bring it on again for another 20 minutes. And then it'll bring it up to about 1400 degrees. And I just let it sit there at about 1400 degrees for a couple of hours. And then once I get it there, I take a piece of black pipe, put that in there like that, and that'll bring the temperature down slowly to about 1000 degrees, and it'll sit there at about 1000 with that open, just with the bottom switch on. And at that point I start melting my metal and get it all ready, and then I can take it out of here at 1000 degrees and pour my bronze or silver in. So that's how I use my kiln. So if you're getting into investment casting and you've got one of these, and you're like, well, now how do I use it? Because there isn't any temperature gauge. It's all by trial and error, and it's taken me a few times to figure it out, and so I'm passing on the knowledge. Anyway, hope that helps. Anyway, thanks for watching.